And howdy, everyone. Happy Sabbath. Welcome to Word Redeux number 20. Today we are looking at Genesis chapters 39 and 40. In case you didn't hear, that's Genesis 39 and Genesis 40. So we are down a couple of people right now. And that German dude went on strike. Can't believe it. So, howdy, Andrea, howdy, Lynn, howdy, Katarina, and anyone else that hasn't said anything yet. JJ, howdy. Before, though, as usual, let's go ahead and pray in. Heavenly Father, thank you very much for bringing us together for this fellowship, this learning and edification. We ask for you to pour out your spirit of knowledge and understanding upon everybody here now and in the future. And let your message be heard. Let it be a changing force in our lives as we go forth in our day and interact with those people around us. Thank you for all the connections that you have been making, and thank you for the healings that you have been providing with people, both spiritual and physical. And we would ask for your healing touch on those that are suffering from cancer right now, and make them open to the most effective means to let the body, the temple that you designed, heal itself. We would ask that and humbly request that, and thank you. In Jesus, Yeshua's name, amen. Okay, let's see how far back this thing is here. It's way back. Okay. So bear with me a moment. I got to do this thing and then hit that thing. Go to this, click that, and also throw up the banner. Woo! Genesis 39. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer of his house. And all that he had put into his hand, all that he had, he put into his hand. And it came to pass from the time that he had made him overseer in his house, and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, Lie with me. But he refused, and said unto his master's wife, Behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand. There is none greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How, then, can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? And it came to pass, as she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. And it came to pass, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of her house and spake unto them, saying, See, he hath brought in an Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came in unto me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. And it came to pass, when he heard that, I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled and got him out. And she laid up his garment by her until his Lord came home. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, The Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto me came in unto me to mock me. And it came to pass, as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled out. And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him. And that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. Genesis chapter 40. And it came to pass after these things, that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers, and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard, into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and continued a season in ward. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in prison. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his Lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph. And he said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, after the former manner when thou wast his butler. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and, behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head. And in the uppermost basket there was all manner of bake meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of his chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgat him. All right, let's zoom back here. Shall we? To what? Chapter 39. My goodness, everybody came in now. Howdy, everybody. Okay. So we're continuing on with Joseph's story. And as I commented last study, it's amazing how they make 3-hour movies out of these short verses. But still very interesting. And what do we have here? So notice whatever Joseph does is being blessed. Do you think that's just how some people are? They're like in the Lord's blessings? Or is it because Yah had a special purpose for him? I tend to think it's a little of both, maybe. Maybe not, though, because after all the famine, what happened? They lived happily ever after. At least Joseph and his brethren. Okay, anyways. So it seems like the big part of the first part of this chapter is how did he get to the prison house? Because of his master's wife. That's an interesting question. I was thinking about Joseph. How much influence did the Egyptian culture have on him? How did he keep faithful? Did the Egyptians respect it? Well, we know he looked like an Egyptian when his brothers came and bowed down to him. That's interesting in its own right when you think about it. We'll get to that. But interesting, he wanted to be Hebrew, and then the Hebrews come and bow down to an Egyptian, or who they think is an Egyptian. So basically, he had control over everything in Potiphar's house except the wife. And, we know she's after Joseph. Was she after other servants too? Yep. That he did seem faithful. And he just believed. He just kept saying, nope, nope. I'm not going to worship anybody but God. Might not have been able to use him. Possibly. But look at Joseph at the time he left. He was young, right? So what, 17 years old? Maybe a little younger? Not quite enough to look like a full-grown man. But he believed. And remember, Jacob, Israel, kept him close. I like this son. He's fun. He's not causing me any problems. So he probably got to hear over and over and over, about the promises made to Abraham and Isaac, and about Jacob's dreams and the promises made to Jacob. So this was a death penalty, right? If it had been something that came to pass, that Potiphar could have had the servant, well, he was his property. He could have killed him. So there must have been an element of Abba's intervention there. And being taken out of Potiphar's house and put into the very prison that's under the control of Pharaoh. Must have been a good prison too. And that sounds kind of funny, but think about how our culture, we have blue collar prisons, right? dirty crime prisons and white collar crime prisons. So if someone does like government crime, they send them to what they call club fed, that type of stuff. You rob a liquor store and shoot the clerk, you go to state prison, ghetto prison. So if he's in here with Pharaoh's baker, chief baker, not one of the peon bakers. He's in there with one of the chief bakers and the chief butler. He's probably in a pretty decent prison. And notice, too, the dude in charge of the prison, the keeper of the prison, right? He let Joseph run everything, right? Keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, all of the prisoners that were in the prison, even these well-connected political prisoners. It's very interesting. Okay, so he goes to prison and thump. Let's go to 40. Back to 40, I guess. It's the back 40. Okay. Excuse me. So here we also have, this is the main story of the butler and the baker. And the candlestick maker. No, I don't know about the candlestick maker, but he is able, notice he gives praise, or the proper, I don't know, what would you call that? Proper recognition to God first. Right? Joseph says, do not interpretations belong to God? So he's keeping God first in everything he does. Yep. Yeah, I would say so. Even more privileges, though, because he's running the prison. Don't get me wrong. All the inmates run the prison or the jail just by sheer numbers, right? Through pacifism. But, he's running the whole thing. In charge of everybody. Now, it's interesting, too. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, then he said, hey, interpret my dream. Potiphar's wife's son. What? Oh. Messy hands. Did you hit your head? I'm just kidding. Howdy, GR. That. All right. Yeah, which book? We're going to hear about how she had to get a new phone because it's all covered in donut dough. Or eggs or something. So, hanged the chief baker. And notice how he said he was going to hang the chief baker. On a tree. Shall hang you on a tree. So the hanging on a tree stuff has been around quite a while. This is well before Romans started their crucifixion. They just perfected it. in a horrible, horrible manner. So at the end of this, we see he did get his job. The chief butler did. He was restored to his butlership and did give the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he forgot Joseph. Forgot. Didn't recall. And that, that's interesting, April, because I was thinking about this. These are the chief butler and the chief baker. I can see either one or both of them, like hiring their wife's sister's youngest son to come work in Pharaoh's house, and then one of them doing something like spilling a cup of wine into Pharaoh's lap, or Pharaoh gets a slice of bread with a mouse's tail in it. Who knows? I mean, we just don't know. But because they're the chiefs, they get the punishment. What type of sloppy kitchen are you running? How dare you? Okay. Anyways. Yeah, exactly. Ew. All right. Anybody else have commentary? Something? Talk to me. Boy, this thing is really lagging there. Who do we got? And watch. See if comments or questions are coming up. Pat, what do you guys think? Does that sound feasible? Because the boss, the person in charge, should be taking all the heat. Should be. But we know how that is. A lot of bosses like to dump on everybody beneath them. Those are the people you don't like working for. Those are the people I don't like working for. All right. Is that everybody? I think so. Yeah, I believe he did. He let him forget until Pharaoh had those dreams, because the dreams were given of God to warn Pharaoh of the coming famine. All things are for our Father's timing. Yep. There's middle management too. At the prison, when I worked at the prison, they called middle management lieutenants. It was the ideal position because when things went wrong, they got yelled at from people up top. They could say, "Hey, I told my sergeants to take care of that." And if complaints were coming from the bottom, they say, "Oh, hey, the captain and the deputy warden said this is the way it is. Too bad." And if things went well, then they patted themselves on the back and took credit for it. Yep. Yes, it does teach us to be patient if we're being patient. When we try to force the issue is where we get into trouble. Very much so. So, anyways, Anybody else have anything? What are we doing next week? Next week, we're looking at 41 and 42. So next week, we're getting into covering Pharaoh's dreams and the 7 years of plenty, and then his brothers being sent down into Egypt. I'm pretty sure when it's 115 degree outside, the answer is ice cream. Yep. Patience is a virtue, and I don't need help with it. I'm okay if I'm without that virtue. How many times have you heard of somebody say they prayed for patience and all of a sudden everything started becoming very trying and very problematic? Because I hear people say that all the time. All the time. I prayed for patience, and then my kid caught hyperactivity disorder at school. Nice. Did you give Country Family my mailing address? My shipping address? I'm kidding. You don't have to ship me any sides of beef or anything. Yep. Yep. Like any muscle, we have to exercise it. And the thing is, when we pray for patience, we're going to the gym master and saying, "Hey, can I have this spiritual body trainer help me work out and build up this muscle of patience?" And our Father says, "Oh, you need help with patience, huh? Let's start with 20 reps right here." True story. Anybody that has children or is married knows it. Okay, so all right, everybody, thanks for coming. I'm glad you're here. That what I'm thinking about, let me know real quick. Doing a question, answer, and comment thing on the Prism of Antichrist. That would you all be willing to partake in that? And so we can sit down, because that was just a very brief summary of everything. Very brief. Very, very brief. I'm thinking maybe put aside an hour for questions, answers, comments. It's interesting because I've already heard from other people that have started researching it deeper, and they're like, "Oh, whoa, I noticed this and I noticed that." No, it's not deeper into the prism. It's not deeper into the prism. It's pulling the prism away. Get the prism out of here. We don't need it. Prisms are corrective viewing things or distortive viewing things. They don't correct anything. Actually, they do make prismatic eyeglasses, which I don't know. That's just a bit odd. The It's like wearing. You remember when you were, well, for those of you that were old and used to get the toys out of the back of the comic books, you remember the kaleidoscope glasses? Made everything look like a kaleidoscope. Yeah. Or the X-ray glasses. My brother's friend ordered a pair of those, and he got them. And you put the glasses on, and it had like an image of a skeleton hand on it. Yep. Okay. Anyways, everybody, it's our Abba's day of rest. Get some rest. Kick back. Relax. Don't work. Like, share, subscribe. That's not work. Ringing the bell. That's some work, though. Hey, speaking of which, I'm still doing the coconut oil, organic, cold pressed, filtered coconut oil in the eyes. It helps. And then look up Tibetan eye chart. That'll help too. It's very interesting. I can read much smaller than I could 10 years ago. Take that for what it's worth. When they first started telling me, yep, you're going to have to start getting different glasses prescriptions every year. All right. Anyways, love you all. We'll talk soon.